It's moving. This is Connie Mason. I'm at the home of Sonny Williamson, and he's an author, historian, and probably one of the community leaders that we depend on a lot for our heritage. And it's March the 8th, 2011, and I'm at his beautiful home in Marshallburg. And Sonny, thank you so much for letting me come here today and talk to you.
Well, Connie, it's always my pleasure to have you aboard. I'm certainly glad we could get together.
Well, you've been a hero and somebody to emulate all these years. I think the other person, of course, is Graydon Paul. You know,
Mr. Paul.
He seriously influenced my career. You know, with music and the telling of stories, and I think he probably was one of yours too, wasn't he?
Well, in a way, we told a lot of the similar stories.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go to your background just a minute and just tell me where you were born and who your mom and dad were.
Well, my mom and dad were Tull and Nellie Daniels Williamson. I was born in sea level, and
you got some
Mama
pictures
was from
there?
Cedar Island.
Your mama was from Daniels from Cedar Island?
Daniels from Cedar Island. And Daddy, of course, was a Williamson from across the Sound, Goose Creek Island.
Oh, Goose Creek, yeah. Is that Pamlico County or
That's
Hyde? Or?
yeah, I think it's Pamlico Sound, Pamlico County. I believe it is.
Yeah.
And Lowlands and Hoboken.
Mm-hmm.
Is the area he was originally drug up in.
How did they meet?
He was, or my uncle Frank Small, Benjamin Franklin Small, of his picture is right up here on the top right.
The one in the round top?
In the smaller.
The one on the bottom?
On the top right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in a gray frame.
Mm-hmm.
He was my uncle by marriage, and he was running a logging company, cutting timber in Cedar Island.
Oh, really?
Back in the teens, around 1900, really.
Mm-hmm.
And on Cedar Island. And when he run out of, my father came there to work with him. I don't know how he met Uncle Frank, but he came there as a timber,
a logger,
log cutter, timberjack.
Mm-hmm.
And Uncle Frank married one of my mother's older sisters. I don't know, 10 or 15 years older than she was. Aunt Josie, who ran the post office at sea level for many years. And Daddy worked with him at Cedar Island. And I guess he had been keeping his eye on my mother. She was 12 years younger than he was. But when she turned 18, in 1911, they were married.
Oh.
And they moved to sea level.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, they moved to other places first. They lived on Rumley's Hammock at one time.
Rumley's Hammock, really?
For about a year or so. And
were there other people living on Rumley's Hammock?
No, they were the caretakers there. And John Day had a hunting lodge there.
Do you remember a story about a woman named Mississippi that lived out there near Rumley's Hammock, by any chance?
No, I don't recall it. But could have happened. She could have lived there because they had people living there before my mother and father went. They were quite young. But they already had my two oldest brothers at that time. So it would have been sometime in the teens. It would have been before 1920, between 1911 and 1920.
And just for the tape, tell us where Rumley's Hammock is.
It's by car if you're going to Cedar Island from Atlantic. When you can see the marsh, even before you get to the bridge, you can see Rumley's Hammock off several miles off to your right. It's a hammock because it's not a true island. And it is island in a way because you couldn't walk through that marsh.
You had to have a boat to get there.
You had to have a boat to get there. But it was a hammock because it was joined by land.
And
Savannah, we'd call it Savannah.
Right.
Or some people would. It would be the Savannah, what is the marshland.
Were there other people living there on the island? I mean, on the hammock with you?
No one that I know of. I don't believe there was anyone there. I never heard it.
Have you been back there lately? Or?
No, I have never been on there.
Never been on there.
There's nothing there, but I understand. But a few brick from the old chimney. And
was he still logging then, when your dad?
No, they weren't logging. There was no logging there. It was just thick, what we call jack oaks mostly, and
scrubby
stuff because you got to realize this is right out in the open.
Right.
Anything there would have, if there had been any pines growing there, and there probably was, they would have been very scrubby.
Right.
And they lived there for a while. They had some wild hogs on the island. And my oldest brother, I think he was 3 years old, he had a little mishap with one of the hogs. And my mother insisted on moving away. A little bit too wild for her.
So it was a wild hog, and he had a run-in with him?
Well, he had. My father used to tell me, I don't know if it's true or not. He told me that hogs, when you could take domesticated hogs and just let them turn them wild in the woods, where they had to provide for themselves, and they would turn into what we know as the wild pigs, the ones with the tusk and all. They would evolve into that in 7 generations. Now, that sounds pretty quick to me,
but it could be true. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm sure not. It's his story, and I wouldn't dispute it.
No, sir.
Because that hogs can get pretty wild if they're not.
Oh yeah, they can kill people. Hogs can. What happened to your brother?
Well, my brother, he wasn't seriously hurt, but my mother just knew that the hog was going to eat him up and kill him, and they got him away from him. And
where did they move from Rumley's Hammock? Where'd they go?
I think that's the time they went to Cash Corner.
Cash Corner.
Do you know where Cash Corner?
No, sir.
Maybe it was called that because there was $1 bill there among all the occupants. It's over near Aurora, in that general area. And,
Aurora.
There's a train. The train goes through there. I remember riding it one time. And
so you were born over at Cash Corners?
No, I was born at sea level.
Okay.
But they moved to sea level in 1920. And before that, my father before he was working as a lumberjack, he worked on a sailing vessel out of Norfolk to Baltimore.
The Baltimore?
From Norfolk to Baltimore, it made regular runs, weekly runs.
Was it freight? I guess it would be, wouldn't it?
It carried freight, and I guess it wasn't a very big schooner, but two-mast schooner. It was probably about 50, 60 foot. That's what I would imagine. But he worked there for a while, And he returned home and got the job logging. And when my mother was 18, by the way, I have a picture of her when she was 18, and you can see where I get my good look. Well, most of those C. Ronald Danielses were pretty good-looking people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And, except one or two that we don't talk about.
They break the norm.
But he moved to sea level, and it's an interesting little story how he bought the house there. Uncle Frank was, of course,
That's a puppy dog.
Company.
Hey, puppy dog, what's the puppy's name? You're going to get on tape, yes, you will.
My name is Molly.
Hey, Molly. 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 Don't eat the microphone, Molly.
Roll out, Molly. Speak to her, Molly.
Hey, Molly. Hey, I'm going to turn this off for a minute, okay?
Repertoire.
Big repertoire.
I could tell her I don't baby talk to her or tell her to sit or give commands. I tell her, Molly, come over here and sit down, like I would invite you to.
Uh-huh.
And she comes over here and she sits down.
Well, they understand. They understand.
And I'll tell her, you can't start getting dressed. And I'll tell her, Molly, you can't go this time. She'll go up and take her perch up by the table where she can see out.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't tell her that, she stays between me and the door.
She thinks she can go.
She thinks she can go if I tell her that.
Right.
But if I tell her that a half an hour early, that's okay. She never tries to put you in there.
Yeah.
But if I don't tell her, she's between me and that door.
Because she wants to be with you.
She wants to go.
Well, tell me about how many brothers and sisters you had now.
I had 3 brothers. I was the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
No
sisters?
No sisters. The oldest brother was, God, I can't remember when they were born.
Well, you don't have to remember when they were born. But I mean,
he was.
What was his name?
Preston.
Preston.
And he was grown and married when I was born. And as a matter of fact, myself and his only child, graduated high school at the same time.
How about that? Yeah, my mother's the youngest of 9 children. And, well, you know them, yes. Weldon and Maybelle. Maybelle Fulcher from Stacy. Maybelle was my mother's oldest sister.
Okay.
And so Maybelle and Weldon's children, Earl and Dare Fulcher, Dare was the same age as my mother, which was Maybelle's sister.
Right.
So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and she didn't like to call me Uncle Sonny.
Yeah.
That always bothered her a lot.
Well, it's unusual because Earl Fulcher feels like my uncle, but he's my cousin, my first cousin, and I can't call him uncle, but I want to call him uncle. So I can understand that.
He's a nice guy.
And so you got Preston, and what was your other brother's name?
The next one to come along was Gerald.
Gerald. Was that with a G?
G. And he was called Jerry, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in the Coast Guard before World War II. I'm going to say 1940, early 1940. And he stayed in, 28, I believe 28 years.
Was he stationed here or?
A long time. Just before he retired, he was stationed at Fort Macon.
Mm-hmm.
But he was stationed away.
Up north, or?
He was up north, out of Staten Island. At one time, he spent the 5 years during the war. He was in the Atlantic. He was torpedoed. His ship was torpedoed on the northern route to Europe, and he was on a raft for, I believe, a couple of weeks.
No kidding.
Before they found him, they had three good-sized rafts tied together, and one of them decided they could get found better if they went the wrong way, so they untied and drifted off. I don't know what happened to them. And the other two, the one he was on, and the other one was finally picked up by a steamer. And he said that he was the only one that didn't lose limbs because of frostbite.
Oh, really? Was that cold?
It was that cold, but he knew that if he kept his feet and hands in the water, that he didn't believe that they would frostbite.
And he was right.
And everybody thought he was crazy. But he was right.
How about that?
And
what a trick.
And then he got transferred to the Pacific. And I believe he went ashore 7 times, because the Coast Guard was taken into the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
It became part of the Navy. And the Coast Guard went as the first wave to set up hospital tents. The command headquarters, but they would go in first and set that up. But he would never talk about it. And I believe he went ashore 7 times on 7 of the invasions in the Pacific. There was many of them there, many of them. And he'd tell war stories, but they would always be stories that he'd read about. I said, "Oh, Gerald, that didn't really happen to you." He said, "Well, not really, but that was similar to."
Well, there were a lot of World War II veterans who will not talk about their experiences.
He wouldn't talk about his experience.
So that's not unusual.
No, it's true. I didn't know it at the time, but it's not unusual. And he came back, and after he came back, and was, I believe, one of his last assignments was out of Miami. And he was on one of the patrol boats that run between there and Cuba. Mm-hmm. But they had the armed patrol boats, small ones, 83-footers, I believe.
Like a PT boat or something?
Well, similar to that, yes. And they run patrol between Cuba and the
coastline.
The coast and down in the Keys, and they run that patrol for all during the missile crisis of Cuba. Mm. He got out, and him and his wife. He was married to she was a first-generation American. Her folks were from Greece. And
where did he meet her? Was that here?
He met her in New York.
Oh, okay.
At that time, he was married to a young lady from Atlantic.
Oh.
And he met this lady, and him and the lady from Atlantic separated. And when he showed up after the war, he brought a city-raised Greek home with 2 beautiful young girls.
Oh.
What a surprise.
Surprise! Well, now you were in the military too, weren't you?
I was in, after that,
When did you go in?
I went in 77. No, not 77, that's when I got out. I went in as soon as I graduated high school in 54.
Oh, in 1954. And what branch did you go in?
In the Air Force.
In the Air Force. Uh-huh.
I had a lot of kidding about that.
You did.
As a matter of fact, one time I was asked to speak at Fort Macon.
Uh-huh.
Oh, what was the commander? Commander Rose.
Yeah.
If you recall him. Not been that long ago. And I told that stories about me being and joining the Air Force when everybody else in the family and everybody that I knew in the whole county was Coast Guard.
Right.
And that really, no matter where I'd been in the Air Force, I was always close enough to the water that I could get there within a weekend.
There you go. You had to.
And so I was.
What was your job in the Air Force? I mean, did you become a pilot or?
No, I was an enlisted man, and my last jobs were I was assigned with intelligence with the American embassies.
Mm.
You might have heard of the DIA. I know you've heard of the CIA,
Mm-hmm.
but there's an outfit, military, in civilian clothes. In the embassies also, it's a defense intelligence agency. And our job was to be nice guys and not do any undercover work. That was the CIA's job. And I worked with them as a photographer.
Oh, as a photographer.
And I was trained as an airborne photographer for the job. And when we went to Israel, the Israelis wouldn't let the ambassador have an airplane. Well, for security reasons, they didn't let him fly all around, look at everything, and spy on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had an agreement with them. We gave them all the secrets we know, and they gave us a thank you very note card. They gave us nothing. The Israelis are pretty cautious.
Yeah.
And we stayed there for 3 years, and had an unimaginable good time.
There, that's good.
Had a nice house, a villa they called it, on the beach, or right near the beach. We were the first house from the beach, and it was just fantastic duty.
Now, as a photographer, did they teach you how to develop film and all that? I mean, did you do all that?
Yes, I did. I had my own darkroom.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know what they told the Israelis that I'd done. I was listed as a hobby shop worker. And I guess the way we got around the rule of not having photographers or people collecting information was that we had cameras and as hobbies, everybody had a camera, and I took care of the cameras and developing their pictures. It was a hobby to everybody.
So that was your cover.
Supposedly, yes. When I asked, they wanted to send me back to D.C., and I did not want to go back to D.C. And I told them, send me back to the regular Air Force. And since I had already been to Vietnam at that time, I guess is the reason, they sent me to Eglin Field 9, Eglin Air Force Base.
Where's that now?
In Fort Walton Beach, Florida, on the Gulf between Destin and between Panama City
And what was the name of it again, Sonny? What was the name of the...
Eglin Air Force Base.
Eglin.
E-G-L-N. And they had a outlying field at Eglin.
Okay.
A big, pretty good-sized base. And when I reported in, they said, well, we don't know why you're here, because we don't have a master sergeant's billet in the hobby shop. Staff sergeant runs a hobby shop.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really know what to do with you. I said, what are you talking about? They said, well, it said on your orders that you're a hobby shop. Basically. I said, okay. I didn't even know about it.
You didn't even know what your cover was.
Well, I knew what it was, but I didn't know it was called hobby shop.
Now, when you joined the military, where were you living? Were you living to Cedar Island then?
I never lived in Cedar Island.
You never lived to Cedar Island?
I was living in sea level.
In sea level, excuse me.
I think we got around that point, didn't we?
Yeah.
That Daddy bought the house there in 1920. And I was born sea level in 1934, which has been 150 years ago.
It feels like it sometimes, doesn't it?
And
is the house still there?
No, it burned while we were overseas. And we did manage to, my niece that I said I graduated high school with, went to the house. She had heard that the brother that was next to me, Tully, the third brother, he was 7 years older than I was, that he had finally got married after Mama died. He got married, and that he got killed in a car accident.
Oh.
And that the lady that he'd been married to, he was I don't know what to call him, quartermaster, I believe, on the ferries. He had a good job with the ferry system. But his week off, he stayed drunk.
Oh.
And the day he was going back, or the day before he got back, he didn't drink anymore for 2 weeks. And when he got off, he stayed drunk for 2 weeks.
Oh, dear.
And you could have told if you'd have seen his, I shouldn't say that, she was a nice lady.
Well, we don't have to go into that. We don't have to.
No, you don't have to go into. He must have been drunk, or he wouldn't have married her.
Okay.
But
so you were living at sea level when you went to the military.
I was living at sea level.
And when you got out of the military, where came back to Marshallburg and to this very house, or?
Well, the old house was standing right by the southeast corner of this one.
Okay.
The old 2-story, 2/2, I think they call it.
2/2. Uh-huh.
And it was really, to me, it was beyond repair. And my brother had divorced his Greek wife after 40 years or so, I don't know.
Oh, my goodness.
After he'd retired and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they got divorced. And he says, why don't we build a house together? I knew that was a mistake. I knew it was a mistake. But how you turn your brother down, you know? I hadn't seen him that much all of my life. He'd been quite a bit older than I was.
Now, was this was Jerry?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, but he was a good man. All the crews that worked for him in the Coast Guard liked him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was sort of a party goer and giver. And he had lots of friends. But as we figured in advance, couldn't make it together. He told me one time that, remember, I'm still the chief.
Oh.
He was chief engineer. And of course, they run the engine room.
Right.
Nobody, the commander doesn't come in the engine room.
Right.
Unless the chief invites him. And he said, I'm the chief. And I said, Jerry, I'm going to tell you something. You be the chief. Damn right, I'm the chief. Executive officer. And you can be the chief, but you remember who you work for.
Ooh.
And that upset him quite a bit. And I believe it was that night. Of course, he was drunk when this happened. And that night, he slept in the hammock outside and left me a note. He says, I'll be back for some things, but I'm moving out tonight. I've officially run away from home.
Officially run away from home.
And he couldn't be the chief captain. He wasn't going to be anybody. But
well, there you go.
We still
stayed friends. So, tell me about living down here in Marshallburg when you came out of the military. Did going to the banks, was that a part of your lifestyle?
Well, it surprised us. We were our last assignment was at a radar station, Air Force radar station in Jacksonville Naval Air Station.
Jacksonville, Florida?
Jacksonville, Florida. And we were a little Air Force unit, maybe 100 people. All the single guys lived in apartments downtown. When the commander, who was only a major, came there, I understand, because the people in the radar station worked shift work. And they showed him what the barracks condition that the Navy lived in, single men.
Mm-hmm.
My men can't live there. They've got to be, where they can't be where they had a guard on the door.
Mm.
Really, they had a Navy man, like a military police, on the door. You had to be in by certain hours, out by certain hours.
Goodness.
So they can't go by this. They got to have decent quarters, And he moved them off base into an apartment. Well, it was not apartments, it was housing, but all built around the swimming pool.
So you had a nice, that's nice, yeah.
And the only thing they were just required to keep it clean. And I would go by about twice a month and inspect to make sure there wasn't any sour milk or rotten chickens in the fridge, and no cigarette butts in the bed and things like that. But they pretty near had it made. And so we were there for about, I don't know, a little over a year. And then that's when I retired for good and came back home. That was in January 77. And I might be 6 months old, I don't know.
That's all right.
January 77.
Well, now you had a job here in the county too, didn't you?
After that, I came back and we started building. Oh, in the meantime, we were going to live with Gerald, so he went out, visited the trailer places, and bought us 2 take over the payment trailers.
Uh-huh.
I have to say they were in good condition for trailers, and he could put 2 on one lot. This was one lot that Jenny's mother had given us with the old house on. He came in and put his right. If you've noticed, this gets smaller at the back.
Oh, okay.
32 foot across this room at the front.
Mm-hmm.
It's only 10 foot. 60,
Yeah.
60 feet back.
Mm-hmm.
So the way he put his trailer on that wall, and I guess he was supposed to have the trailer that he picked up for me put parallel to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It ended up along that wall there, and 10 foot from the other trailer. Ended up on the front of it, 32 foot apart, and the back of it 10 foot apart.
Okay.
So if you could just look up at the ceiling, you can see where it looks like upside down boat.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
And I started to design the rest of it, and then they wouldn't give me a permit to live in it, because it was met all the specifications, just an open building of a barn or a storage house. 1,000 square feet of storage space.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I'm going to use the toilets and the kitchens and the trailers until we finish this portion.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to put bathroom and kitchen in this portion and move the trailers away.
Mm-hmm.
That was when they first figured out how did you get 2 trailers on one lot. And I just could not do anything to get them to let me change the designation on this as a house. I think that story's pretty straight. Mm-hmm. And anyway, we had to change our plans a little. But we built a house, had the brick or cinder blocks laid along where he had originally put them. And I started building.
You mean put the trailer where you...
Yeah,
okay.
There was a trailer on each side.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an add-on, became like a central room, and that was the private areas on the side.
I gotcha.
And we got along real fine for a while. And I think Jerry was planning on me just being retired, do what I wanted to, go fishing with him or whatever with him, and drink with him anytime I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. And
I tried to, Gerald, I've got a wife. You don't have one. That's probably the reason you don't have one.
So you got another job in the county?
Yeah, Alfred Morris, one of the high school boys that I went to service with.
Alfred Morris?
Morris. The brother of Don Morris had the
had the camps, uh-huh.
And He lives in Smyrna now, raising billy goats. and and we, after I got the house framed up to where we could live in it, and we had Jenny had a good friend that went to high school. Edward Davis had run the Ray Davis Boat Works, wanted us to work for him, and he kept after us. He had some yachts he had 2 yachts that they wanted all of the bright work, they call it, all of the mahogany and the teak work, stuff like that, redone every year and revarnished or whatever. And I want you to do that for me. And that's how I started working for the boat yard. We would do those and leave the boat building to them. We would do the bright work on and little repair jobs on the yachts, and
How long did that keep you busy?
I don't know, 5 or 6 years probably. But I wanted to do it because I finally started working in building boats, and I got to see firsthand how these fellows build these boats. It's just unbelievable. They had one guy worked down there that from Arkansas Island married a girl over here that really couldn't read and write. He could sign his name, but he was just fascinated with the ads. You know what an ad is?
Oh yeah, ads. Yeah.
I give them to one of the museums. But it's
kind of like an axe, but it's flat on one side.
Right. And he cut the bow stem out without plans without
ads. Wow.
And I mean, he could have carved the Statue of Liberty if he'd given him a big piece of wood, I think.
Wow.
Had a picture of it.
He might not have had an education, but he was a talented man.
Right. Very talented. And I finally, Alfred Morris told Tom Davis. It was about the time that Tom Davis was superintendent of schools. And he told him he knew that they were looking for somebody to take the attendance counselor's job. And they were desperate for somebody. And Alfred told him, when they told him that basically what that was the old truant officer's job.
The truant officer, yeah.
He said, well, I knew the man for you. If you'll quit the boatyard, I knew the man for you. And I went down and talked to him. And they had me convinced that I needed to do it before I knew what it encompassed. And I worked with them for, I think, 12 years. And I enjoyed that job. I did.
You got to know a lot of families, didn't you? Close up and personal, doing a truancy job.
Because what I did, I would visit their homes. If they had trouble keeping their kid in school, I figured that I could find out much better than I could by calling that parent in. And if they happened to be working, which was not very likely, they'd had to take off a day to come to the office to see me. I'd wait till after 10 o'clock and make an appointment to go see them. Or I'd just drop in on them. And I could see how the kid was living. And I mean, some of them you wonder how the kid turned out as good as they did. How they, by the way, they were the example that was being set at home.
So Tom Davis thought enough of your character assessment, and your insight into people.
It was a job. I should have had a degree in social work.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to have one now to do it.
Oh yeah, and they convinced me that they could work a way to grandfather me in.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years to figure out they grandfathered me in, and I chased kids and went to juvenile court about once a month, because they usually didn't have juvenile court but once a month back then. And I'd had to go to court once a month. I wouldn't take the kids to juvenile court after the first 2 or 3 years, because the judge would tell them, look, you can't really get sent off, as you say, because you're not an adult. And they would explain to them that he really couldn't do anything with them, like put them in reform school.
So what good did that do?
So it done no good to take the kids. Right. You could see that I had not lied to them, but I had tried to put a fear or a respect for the judge into them. And I hadn't told them. The example I used, I said, you know how much power that judge has got. He can put you in the electric chair for 30 days in the electric chair. What? I said, that's right. You can do anything you want. He put you 30 days in the electric chair, or pat you on the back and say, good kid, go do it again. That's how much.
Right. Power.
And that's pretty damn.
Yeah, sure.
And when the judge would explain to him that he really couldn't put him in reform school because it wasn't a crime that an adult could go to jail for. Well, after that, I started reading the law books, and I started taking parents to court.
Ah.
And
that worked better.
That worked a lot better. But the judges, most of them, just didn't think. They'd look at a kid, a 16-year-old girl, for instance, and they'd say, oh, she ought to be able to go to school she wants to. If she don't want to go to school, she's big enough. I said, yeah, she's big enough. This particular one we're discussing, she's big enough she can keep her head filled with smoke and drink beer and hang out with 50-year-old men and spend the night on the yachts. She's big enough to do that. But she don't need to be doing that. And I thought that was why we were here.
Right.
To try to keep that kid in school. And the judge, can't remember his name. Don't matter. I'll remember it in a minute. But he said, see, I was trying to remember who the DA was then. Got to right across from the courthouse, on that corner across the courthouse. And Big Daddy's was over on the other corner.
Right.
What the hell was his name? He was the DA then. You know, I had to give all the new lawyers coming in a job as a DA for a while.
Yeah.
Roger Crow.
Crow, yeah.
And I asked him, and Roger was pulling on my pants leg. He was sitting down at the table up front, and I was standing up. And he was pulling on my pants leg to make me shut up. And I said, Judge, I'm doing work day and night trying to keep these kids in school. And you just said I didn't have enough evidence to prove that this woman not taking proper action to send her kid to school. I said, I would really like to have a few minutes of your time at your convenience, and you could explain to me how I could, what kind of evidence I need to, so I would know better the next time.
Mm-hmm. What'd he say?
Says, I'll consider it. And about, I guess, a month later, Mary Austin, she was clerk of court then, she called me and said, Sonny, Judge, damn, I thought I had his name, but wants to see you about lunchtime. And his...
This was Mary Austin, the clerk of court?
Yeah. She taught me all the law I needed to know. And she says, have you done something bad? I said, no, Mary, nothing bad. Because she needed to know she needed to go talk to the judge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to see him. And he says, I just wanted to meet you again. We weren't in the
courtroom. Yeah.
To see what kind of fellow you are. He says, I've been in this business a long, long time. I have never had my decision questioned by anyone. And in fact, I don't know any judge that ever had his decision questioned by the open court.
Well,
you know, I guess they do after they appeal it.
Yeah.
You know, but
well, you were just being honest with him.
I told him that. I said, I'm concerned for these children, and I want to do the best I can. But when I go to all this trouble to gather up what I think is proof for anyone, because I don't ask for much, I only ask that you don't send this parent in jail, don't put them in jail, unless maybe on the weekend because they might have a job. I don't want to keep them from a job if they have one, and I don't want to keep them from their family if they need to be with one. But I do expect them
some support.
To support the kids, to buy them proper food, clothes, and if they don't do this, I expect them to have to pay for it by a weekend in jail once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to put them in jail permanently. And I thought I'd explained that to the DA before we ever went to court. And I don't... I'm not trying to hurt the parent. I'm trying to help them too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just want to know if you can explain to me, because the school board has a lawyer. But I've been informed that he's not there. He's there just to defend the school board, or the school, the workers, the front office people, and the teachers. That he's not there to help me
with the students.
And all I was asking of him was a little advice, you know. I said, since then I've been looked up at the law books, found out what it was, and I've read the laws that govern my position, and I see what I can do, but I can get a warrant for them. I can have them appear in court, but it don't do me any good if you don't even talk. You got to talk nasty to them or something. They don't do this anymore.
Right.
He said, well, in that particular case, there was nothing you could have done to make me found that mother guilty.
Mm.
I said, my God, Judge, she is probably one of the top 3, and I've got some bad ones. She.
So you were shocked that he said he wasn't going to do nothing to her?
Yeah. Says that girl could have gone to school if she wanted to. She did anything else she wanted to.
So that 16-year-old was in his eyes
was capable of doing all this stuff herself.
Was making her decision.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrible.
And
so that must have been very frustrating for you.
Well, it was very frustrating. Yeah.
Is that why you quit?
No, not really. I just got tired of it. I found out that, or I learned. Well, I'd been there a while. I'd known it, but when it got to be that I had 2 or 3 students, and I'd been talked to the mother, if there was a father, I'd talk to him, and to all their teachers and counselors, social workers that I work with, and that I could do nothing for them. And I was the only one, except once in a while a grandparent cared a little bit, especially in the black community. I was the only one that cared anything as about this child done, or whether it was successful or not. That the other people involved just did not give a damn. It was easier for them to let that kid do what he wanted to. Had kids that never, in their memory, sat down to a family meal. I've had kids, more than one, tell me, well, the way we come in and fix us a sandwich, whatever we want to have, or whatever we got in the refrigerator, and we fix us. Sometimes we got frozen pizza, maybe hamburgers, but most of the time we fix bologna sandwiches and we go sit down, watch TV and eat. And I said, I'd break it down as low as I could. I said, now you mean, I'm talking about where Daddy got home from work, Mama got home from work, or she would work, and she fixed a meal, and you all came to the table at the same time and ate.
Never happened.
Never happened. Well, several of them.
Gosh.
I said, when it got to where I figured out that I was the only damn one that gave a damn about these kids, I said, I've just got a losing battle.
That took an emotional toll from you too, didn't it?
Well, it did, because some of the kids really got sort of emotionally attached to them. You
yeah.
felt from. I had one kid, little boy. God, I'm going to say he was about 10 or 11 years old. See, they wouldn't call me, the principals wouldn't, until the kid, they had no other choice. They had nothing to do with it. There was nothing they could do further for.
You were the last resort.
That's right. And I went down, Lancaster called me, and I went down, and one of my high school classmates that graduated with me was married to Lancaster. And so I went down, he called me and I came down. He said, I want you to go see if you can talk to this kid and do anything at all. He just will not come to school. And when his mother and grandmother forces him to come, he interrupts the class so bad that we can't keep him in the class. I said, what do you do with him? He said, come on. Went in the auditorium, the old Beaufort School there. Still there, I guess. And on the stage, there was a box. I don't know, I say it was a 4-foot square. Maybe 6 foot.
A wooden box?
Yeah, wooden box. Mm-hmm. Had a door on it, with a lock on it. He says he's in there. God, I can't remember that. I see him every once in a while now. But he's in there. I said, you got a kid locked in there? 10, 12-year-old kid? Yeah, that's what we don't know what else to do with him. I said, Jesus Christ, get that lock off the door. And I told him, I said, I don't know what you can do with him. Right now, I could take him home. And then we're going to figure something out, but he's not going to be locked up in that box anymore.
That's horrible.
I said, don't even consider that anymore. I said, I don't know what authority I have or what I can do about it. But there's got to be something. And since you're a good friend of mine, and I think a lot of your wife, I want to make sure that you're not in the middle of something you don't want to be in here.
Right.
So don't make sure you don't lock him in that box. Because if I need to go to the authorities, I'll go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And,
man.
And the boy just had the bad problem. I gained his confidence after a while. And he would call me, and I said, now, if you could go to school, I want you to go to school tomorrow. He says, I can't go. I said, you can go. And there won't be any problem. I'll stay with you if we have to. And he said, oh, she's going, the first thing we do when we go in the classroom, she's going to jump on me for being late. Because I told her I was going to pick him up, bring him myself. I said, that'll be all right. I'll explain that to her. He says, and she's going to jump up on me while I ain't got my homework. Then she's going to jump on me because I'm behind. You can't catch it up. And I said, no, that's going to happen.
Right.
And
Sonny, we're running out of tape here. Let me, it's moving. This is Connie Mason. I'm at the home of here.
Tell her about that.
This is Connie Mason. This is tape 2 of 2.
Tell her about that.
This is Connie Mason. This is tape 2 of 2 with Sonny Williamson at his home. And March the 8th, 2011. And now, Sonny, you were telling us about being a truants officer and what a challenge and emotional drain that was. And we had a little break, and your wife Jenny came in and said, now they said you'd be perfect for the job because of why? Because you weren't looking for a job.
She put me in a bad spot. You're here on one side of me.
And Jenny on the other.
You on one side of me with a recorder on, and she's on the other side of me looking down at the couch. And I sure do like my bed. And she wants me to tell the story. And it's not much of a story. This was just one of the days that I had skipped school. And usually when I'd skip school, I would go home exactly the time that the school bus came. When the school bus would come by the house, just after it got out of her sight, if she was standing on the porch, it made a stop where 4 or 5 different kids walked by, got off, and I was walked back. About,
That's pretty smart. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this time we got home real early. Skipped school, didn't go at all. And I got hungry, I guess. Anyway, I went home and I told Mama I had a school teachers meeting. And as soon as we got to school, we found out, and we all got off school the rest of the day. And, well, I hadn't used that in a long time, so she took that excuse. And I came on home, and I ate, I don't remember what now, but probably cold spots and collards.
Sounds good, cold spots and collards.
But I saw the driveway was quite long. I read 300 yards.
Was this at sea level now?
Sea level, way back from the road. Little 2 tracks, like a cart path, more or less, run straight back to the front door. And I saw this, I believe it was a 39 Ford, turn in. And I says, can't be anybody else, but I can't remember the principal's name. But I'm going to say Mr. Barfield. That sounds right.
Barfield?
Yeah, I'm not sure that was his name or not. But that's got to be Mr. Barfield's car. And there's somebody in it with him. And that was my teacher. My 7th grade, I believe, maybe 8th grade teacher. And they were getting pretty close. And the closest place for me to hide was under Mom and Daddy's bed. The room door was open. And so I slipped in and slipped as far back as I could. I knew they couldn't see me. But I could see their feet and hear them. And they would come in, and when they come to the screen door, Mama told them to come on in. I could see it. I could see that she was waving to them, and I could hear them come in, and they says, Mama, before they got a chance to say anything, I could see the shadow of her hand pointing.
Under the bed?
Under the bed. Right there. So from where they were standing by the first bed, the bed was by the first bed of that chair. And I saw her finger.
About 8 feet.
And she didn't even say anything. And they went there, and he got down on his hands and knees, and I scooted back as far as I could, but he got hold of my feet. And he pulled me up on that bed backwards. And Mama was just beaming. She was just smiling all over. And what are you going to say? I can't thank them for the trip or anything, you know. I can't. They caught me red-handed. I can't deny that what I've done, and so I just kept my mouth shut. And the car.
They put you in the car?
Up in the car, and say, "You're going to school this time, and you're going to stay." And I thought to myself, "We'll see about that."
We'll see about that.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So we got to the school, and Mr. Barfield invited me in his office. I had a bad feeling about that. Mm-hmm. And he took that I guess 4 inches wide paddle. Real thick, with holes drilled in it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the hell those holes were for. But
That's to cut down on the wind resistance as he swings.
I reckon. Because he swung it as hard as he could, I believe. And he just warped the hell out of me with that paddle.
Warped it out of you, did he?
Warped it, I'll tell you. And it really did hurt. He must have hit me a dozen times.
Whew.
Yeah. I had a sore hind heel for long. And when I went in the room, right before God and everybody, she told the class what she had done, had to go and pull me from under the bed. And her punishment was to write so many words or sentences or so many sentences. And she had an 18-inch rule. Wooden
ruler, right?
Wooden rule, yeah. But big and heavy, 18 inch. And she'd take you in here.
And pull them back?
And you had to watch out because she'd crack you on the thumb. And that hurts right there so bad. And I'd get my thumb out the way, and she'd pull that back. And she warped it in me. Plus, maybe right why I shouldn't skip school sentence. Or I can't remember where the paper will write that sentence. So many times I should not skip school. 100 times. And I rigged me up.
So was that the first time you got caught?
No. First time I ever got caught red-handed and drove on the bed. But I didn't run away from school many times. But I fixed me some pencils. I got 3 together instead of 2. And tied them because I didn't have any tape. And tied them. And I wrote 3 times.
At once?
I get 3. I will. And you could look at it and tell it was done that way 3 at a time because
they were exactly the same.
Yeah, every little looked exactly the same. And the next 3 more lines, it was someplace else. But she couldn't.
She couldn't argue. She didn't say not to do that.
She didn't say not to do it. She didn't say anything about it. But she knew what I'd do. And I didn't skip school another time until Friday afternoon.
When was that? You went from Monday to Friday?
Yeah, if it was Monday, whatever day of the week it was, I didn't skip school all week. And by Friday afternoon, I just couldn't stand it anymore.
That lesson was not learned.
I just couldn't stand it anymore.
Were you bored?
I don't know. I think it was the idea of getting away with something, skipping school. The teacher couldn't catch me, and she's looking for me. And I don't know. And I was bored in school anyway. I thought I was bored because I was dumb.
You're bored because you're smart.
And that's just the opposite.
Yep.
And that taught me a lesson that I used in my job. I had kids that were just so bored in school because they just didn't need to be there, didn't need to be in that class. It was so boring for them. They'd heard it over and over. They knew what they were talking about, you know, what the teacher. And they had the 12 o'clock flu, I called it.
The 12 o'clock flu?
They'd get sick, as soon as they got to school, they'd get sick with a pain in their stomach. And this was coming from girls that weren't old enough to have pains in their stomach. And teacher would call the mother. No, they don't have any temperature, but she's real sick. You can probably hear her groaning that she's sick. She's sick and stuff. And Mom would come get her. Just one little girl. And I knew she was real smart. So I told her mother when I went to talk to her mother. And I told her, she said, I could cure that. She said, you could? Right, sarcastic like that. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, what is it she's got? I said, she's got the 12 o'clock flu. I said, answer a couple of questions for me. Don't she, every day she does this, don't she feel a lot better early in the afternoon? Because when she'll miss lunch, maybe she's too sick to eat. Pretty soon, getting close to 3 o'clock, she starts getting hungry. And you make her something special, and she has a remarkable recovery. And by the time school's out, she's out playing in the yard, isn't she? She said, well, I never thought of that. I said, don't she do that often? She said, well, yes, she does. I said, that's the reason I call it the 12 o'clock flu. Because she gets better as soon as she knows she don't have to go to school. And she's just completely bored there. Mm-hmm. And they tested her or something and put her in another class or a class up or some spatial learning class. But her mother and father were both college people. Mm-hmm. They had a business in Beaufort making sails.
Oh, yeah.
You might even know them. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be any more specific than that because
right.
I don't want.
Sure.
I'm sure they're still young enough to
well, so now when you got now, when did you start doing storytelling?
As soon as I can remember, about the time I start remembering things, about 3 or 4 years old. When I was 4 years old, I became a professional singer.
Oh yeah, 4 years old.
About 4. My brother was 7 years older than I was, so that made him about 11 or 12. Mm-hmm. And he was going off with the boys, and of course I wanted to go with him. Well, he was a big boy, and his friends didn't want a little kid hanging around. But if I'd have raised hell, because he wouldn't let me go, Mama would have said, Tilly, take that boy with you, and you look after him. And he didn't want that to happen. So he says, will you stay home and not say anything if I give you a cigarette? I thought a while. I says, maybe for 2. And he was desperate then because they didn't have that many cigarettes. And he was desperate to hold on his cigarettes. So one of the boys spoke up, says, how about you stay home? We'll give you 2 cigarettes and you stay home. But before we leave, you've got to smoke one of them cigarettes and you've got to sing, You Are My Sunshine. Because I've heard that you knew that song. So they put me up on the workbench out in the barn, and I tapped out a little bit and sang You Are My Sunshine for 2 unfiltered Chesterfield cigarettes.
For 2 unfiltered Chesterfield cigarettes. Oh, my
and
Lord.
And that was before they had filters on them anyway.
Well.
So did that make me professional?
Yes, it did. You got paid for it.
Paid for performance.
Yes, you did. That you did. I didn't know you were a singer, too. I hadn't heard you done that.
Well, I was, I guess the word got around because in a couple of years later, I guess I was 7 or 8. I don't know. I was still young enough that Mama would not leave me home by myself.
Yeah.
So I had to go to Wednesday women's church group. Mm-hmm. They met every Wednesday afternoon.
Circle meeting. Was it a circle meeting?
Yeah, well, the cart wasn't quite a circle. It was sort of a two-sided square because there weren't but 4 women. There weren't but 4 women.
Okay.
And we were at Miss Lula's house this time.
Miss Lula?
Miss Lula's. Miss Jimmy was there. That was the Taylor boy's mother. And how are you kin to Alton? You might have been kin to Miss Lula.
I was kin to the Taylors, but I hate to say it on tape, but we were Backswood baby, you know. Woodpaw baby. Taylor. And so Daddy said they never claimed, you know, but we knew.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you who the baby was. So.
I don't know. You know, that part, you know, I have blocked from my memory.
Wisely. Okay.
But the Taylor brothers, now they are.
Well, they were
famous,
Mr.
Smart men.
Miss Jimmy and Mr. Mulvey was Mom and Daddy's good best friends.
Now, Mr. Mulvey,
He was her father.
He was her father, and he didn't he own a store there?
No.
Or I'm thinking of.
We had a brother that owned a store, but he owned one or a fish house over in Bellhaven, I believe it was, and he would run stuff from Bellhaven to here. I don't know, some seafood and maybe some other items. I'm not sure, but they had a boat named the TM.
The TM?
TM Taylor.
TM Taylor.
And she had a motor runner. It was like a Sharpie, but taking the motor runner. I mean, taking the sails off of it. And he had a few dollars. He owned an old car, old Chevrolet. And they were Primitive Baptists. If you know who the Primitive Baptists are. They used to be quite popular when I was a little kid. And
now, in Sea Level, where did they go to church? Did they have to go to Atlantic?
no, we still got a nice Primitive Baptist church at Sea Level.
Oh, do you?
Do you know where you come out of the net road?
Net Road.
Where you go down to the end of the road where the fish houses are in Sea Level?
Oh, yeah.
The same road that Jack Goodman lives on.
Yes. And Time Bragg's oyster house was
V.A. Taylor's.
V.A. Taylor, yeah.
He was Time was Mr. Mulvey's brother, I believe. And I can't remember. They were first cousins to the Taylors that lived up the road where Miss Lula lived. And he was, Alton's father was brother to Miss Lula. And she was our next door neighbor. And anyway, I was there with Mama.
Oh, where's the church? So you tell me where the
church,
where the Primitive Baptist, yeah.
Where you come out of that road, you would run into the church if you went across Highway 70.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The Taylor boys built that cinder block church there and tore the old church down.
Okay.
Which I didn't think was a very good historic thing to do.
No, but you know, they were just doing the best they could.
That's right. Well, and they still, the grass is still cut there. I don't know how that works. They left some kind of a
fun or something to cut and keep.
Some way. But,
so you went to circle meeting or whatever meeting that was.
Yeah, I went to the circle meeting, and they had, I guess somebody had mentioned about me singing, and I can't remember ever singing any other time, except that time. I guess I looked mighty bored sitting over in the corner by myself. And Miss Lulu, because I'd been looking through the kitchen, and I could see the iced tea sitting out on the table, and the ice melting in it. But it wasn't time to serve. She says, if you will sing for us, sing Amazing Grace for us. I guess she'd seen me looking at that iced tea. I'll give you a glass of that iced tea. And Mama says, and I'll let you go sit in a swing on the porch and drink it. I said, amen.
Amen.
I've been relieved from this circle. And so I stood up. They insisted I stand. And Mama insisted on doing my hair.
Slicking your hair down.
And brushing my overalls off or something. And I stood there embarrassed like hell and sang Amazing Grace. I always had a fondness for that song. And I won they gave me a big applause, told me how good I had done. And my head blew right up, and I took my iced tea and went out and kept that swing squeaking so no one would know I was in it. So that was the second time I was paid for singing.
And how old were you then? 12?
I don't think I was that old, about 7 or 8.
7 or 8. So 4 years old, and then 8 years old, and then...
Yeah. And then I couldn't... I can't tell you the other time. It was nasty.
Okay. Well, we'll skip that one. We'll skip that one. But, so, did you do any work on the water? I mean, did you do any fishing?
Yes, I did. For a while. After I got out, or during the summer, when I was still in high school, or it might have been the time that I quit. Because I quit when I was 16.
You quit high school when you were 16?
In 10th grade.
10th grade.
I think I'd finished the 10th grade. Everything but English. And
I find that amusing since you've published how many books now?
I don't know, 14 or 15.
14 or 15 books. I find that quite amusing.
And I still don't know any more English than I did then. I'm talking about the rules.
Yeah, the rules. Well, you know.
And what used to give me is they draw boxes.
Oh, yeah, subject and predicate.
Subject and predicate and verb in a different place. I never could understand why that was necessary. And I just never tried to learn it. Didn't want to learn it. Had no use for it, weren't going to school anyway. So anyway, I quit. And when I got to be 18, during that time, I went long hauling with Captain Jim Wallace Taylor.
Jim Wallace Taylor?
Right.
Was he from Sea Level 2?
Oh, yes. He was a fisherman first class. He, long hauling. We leave on a Sunday afternoon after church. Go through Long Bay. Several hours run. Those boats didn't go very fast. And before daylight, the next morning, we'd get up, make the first set on the tide. And the tide was high before it started running. And we'd set out those nets, and there'd be several hundred yards. And one boat on one end, and our boat on the opposite end.
And the net divided between you.
The net divided between us. And we'd run when the tide was running out, because you couldn't run against the tide if you wouldn't go nowhere. And you'd run with the tide until, of course, you knew what the bottom was, and if it was shallow enough, and if the tide was low enough, that you could do what they call footing up the net. That was the exciting part.
Footing up.
Footing up. So you would bring in all of the net. There was a couple hundred yards of the net that actually was small marsh, and it would lead most of the fish wouldn't get hung there, but they would be funneled all the way back to the center of the net. So when you got all the other net pulled in, once in a while the fish would be hung up in it, but not very often. You get all that pulled in, you would come to the middle of the net, one side over here, this side over here. You come to the middle of the net after a couple of hours. It's hard work.
And you'd be pulling this in by hand because there were no hydraulic blocks or anything then.
You'd be pulling in by hand, and you got all that net on part. The rest of the part was you would get to the position where you could get overboard and stand. And most people didn't have waist boots. If you had, you'd go on over them, maybe anyway. But you got overboard. Sometimes it was colder than hell. And you pulled the rest by hand. And being the beginner, I didn't have enough experience to be the stake man. That's the man that had to keep the bottom of that net, the lead part, on the bottom, and while pulling the other part by. If you didn't do it, the fish would slip under. And so you had to pull the rest of it in there. And that was Ardell's job. He was sort of a short feller.
Ardell
Gaskell. And he was real tough. He had a lot of stingray scars on him, shark scars on his. He had a sharp bite on his ears off.
No kidding. A shark bit his ear off?
Most of it.
Gee whiz, all right.
And it didn't stop him. It got the blood stopped. And the ear don't bleed much anyway. And so get the fish all up, and then you would pull them into sort of like the shad fisherman. Mm-hmm. You get them all into a bundle.
Mm-hmm. Make a circle.
Like, and get them tightened up, as they call it. And then you could get them to, say, a circle as big as this room. And then you would work that in to get alongside the boat. And they had a big dip net, like, that they would dip them out and put them in the hole of the boat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Ardell had, I don't know, he must have been stoned. The stingrays would try to get out by him. And if left alone, the stingray usually don't hit you. But in the ankles and top of the feet were their favorite place. God, they hurt. And that would knock him down for a couple of days. But other than that.
Now I heard a story about a man that got stung by a stingray, and I'm going to turn this over in a minute, but he was walking through Stacy, and maybe I heard this story from you, I don't know. And he wasn't limping, but he was walking real slow, and somebody from the porch said, "What's the matter?" He said, I got stung by a stingray. He said, well, you don't look too bad for it, worse to wear for it. He said, well, I got stung in both legs, so I can't limp.
Yeah, right. I've heard that.
You did. I got one more question for you about long hauling, too.
But they would, this guy that was what he called double stung. He was drunk. And his wife, but he had been stung in each ankle, and he come just like you say, sort of waddling along, not limping. But she says, "I'll bet you're drunk, you son of a gun, drunk again." And this is while he's walking up the path to the house, and he said, "Well, but I ain't drunk." She says, "Well, you're not limping." He said, "I've been stung." Says, "You're not limping. If you've been stung, you'd be limping." He said, "Well, but I've been double stung." One in each leg.
Oh,
but he was drunk anyway.
Got it.
So what's the other question?
The other question was, I talked to my dad because he was long hauling too, and before your time, but he said they used to draw lots to decide where they were going to long haul. Can you tell me about that process a little bit?
I don't know much about it, but each one would be assigned to a different place, sort of like the shrimpers are now what do you call it?
Channel netters.
Channel netters are now. And because some hauls were really better than others. And they would they would know in advance where they were supposed to haul. And I was never involved in that
Right,
haul.
right.
Remember, I was pretty young, and in the afternoon sometimes we'd quit work, make that second haul and have the nets all in if we hadn't caught much, and the sun be going down, and we were courting just a little bit then.
You and Jenny were courting then.
I remember you could see the Thurford Bridge, and once in a while a car would pass over, old Model T or so, pass over. And the sun was going down, and I was looking towards the sunset. And of course, that was right in the direction she was at. And Captain Jim says, You miss her, don't you? You'd like to be there. And I didn't say that. You'd like to be there, wouldn't you? And finally I answered something I don't remember. And Ardell said, "Let me tell you something, son. If they want you bad enough, they'll swim to you."
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Now what do we want?
Well, we got to do this because how did you and Jenny meet?
Jenny, you've got to tell this because I'll get it wrong.
No, you tell it like you've told it to everybody else.
Come on, my throat's getting sore.
Just come give him a break, Miss Jenny.
All right.
And bring me a mint.
I'll give you his version of it.
Okay.
No.
Maybe Connie wants one of these
You want a mint?
lifesavers.
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you.
I've got coffee in those.
I know I can smell it. It smells the best.
Yeah, we can quit. When you get the coffee, maybe we'll be ready to quit and take a break.
Well, I want to talk about the Mule Train, but first of all, I want to know how y'all met.
All right. My sister was newly married when I was 16. Lived in sea level with Clifton Lupton, right across the Highway 70 where he lived. I went to visit my sister in the summer. And my sister's husband was away on a boat. And she was pregnant. So I'm painting the porch, doing one of the husband's chores, helping them out.
Right.
And I'm painting this gray paint on this porch. And just about the time I'm finished, here comes this skinny young man on a Banks pony up the long driveway. No hesitation, gallops right up on the steps and on the porch, and I bail out over the rail.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was Mr. Sonny. And he's, until this day, says that the horse was uncontrollable. And it didn't look that way to me then, and it don't look that way to me now.
You haven't changed your opinion, have you?
But I was kicking the horse in the side, said, "Get you."
But he tells everybody that the horse was out of control and went up there because he saw me with something in my hand, thought it was food.
Uh-huh.
No, it don't work that way. No. He was showing off, and he had seen this young girl out in the yard, so he wanted to come check it out.
And you were showing off, weren't you?
He was showing off.
Now, there's a picture of you on that horse, isn't there?
Yeah, on the back of his book goes.
Oh, you mean
I thought you might be confessing up now and saying that you did it on purpose. You've never admitted it.
I never did it on purpose.
You ain't going to get her to do that now. It's too late.
I'm not going to admit now that I'm almost dead anyway.
That was, actually, he said that's our first meeting. But maybe it was, but I had seen him in the little store, George Golden's store. He was sitting in there when I went in to get a Pepsi or something. And, But I had just been there a couple of days.
How about that?
That was a good start. I don't think I've ever been as mad again in my life as I was.
I was going to ask you what you said to him after he rode up on the porch.
I don't know. And it's probably good that I blanked it out. But it was funny because I don't remember repainting the porch, but I have old ideas that I made him help me.
I repainted the porch.
I was very shy as a young girl, but when I got that mad, I wasn't shy anymore, and I probably made him help me.
There you go.
That was it.
That was good. That was great.
And he was 17, and I was 15 when I met him.
Where's the book, Jenny? Show her the picture of me on the horse.
I've seen it. I've
She's
seen
it. She's got a copy of it.
Yeah, I do.
I like those abs.
Yeah. Where have all those bones gone that we used to have?
We were about 95 pounds.
We were both so skinny that his father saw us walking down the road. We were just, holding hands walking down the road. And he says, "My God, you're so skinny. The two of you, it takes two of you to make a shatter."
Oh, my God. That's great. That's great.
Okay. End of story.
Well, now, see here. Let's talk about the Mule Train a little bit, because I know you were involved with that.
Yeah, I got involved with it when it got growing out of hand.
Out of hand. Well, tell me how it all started. How the Mule Train start for you guys?
Well, that was his dream, not mine. He started the Mule Train. He and Bill Dean, person that's moved into
D-E-A-N, Dean?
Bill Dean, D-E-A-N, who lives here, and they had going to the Cape and fishing together and all this stuff, decided that they could get a boat and a beach vehicle and do a tour. And so they did. He got the license and everything through the Park Service for a vehicle on the beach, and Bill got the boat and license and whatever's necessary to do. And the first year they run out of Beaufort.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, from the waterfront in Beaufort. And
from where on the waterfront?
We ran out of, God, I don't remember what restaurant's called now. I don't remember what it's called.
Stillwater now, but it was something else.
Stillwater?
Stillwater. But it was a restaurant with a dock out front, and it's right in the, not far from where the little old one-man police station was.
Right.
If you remember.
I do.
So they did that the first year from Beaufort, and it was such a long way that they could only do 2 tours a day. And so, not a very big business operation. And the following year, they decided to operate from Harper's Island, which you could.
Now, what year are we talking about here? What year?
1992.
1992.
Because we were lighthouse keepers for the Park Service 2 summers in a row. 92 and 93, I believe. So 94 would have been the first year of Mule Train. And the reason he wanted to do that was we had so many requests when we were keepers. Isn't there somebody, don't anybody have a vehicle that can take us, people that couldn't walk that far, wanted to go to see the old Coast Guard station, maybe where their husband had worked, maybe where their father, blah, blah, blah. So we had so many requests for transportation that he could have said, well, that's what we need to do. And about the summer that he was doing all that, my aunt in Beaufort, who lived alone, had broke a hip and had to go stay and take care of her, or didn't have to, but I chose to. And so he and Bill got this business going, and it was convenient for him because she lived right in Beaufort, not far from the waterfront.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice.
But it grew. But after they started it, and out of Harker's Island, I used to go ride with him, just to ride on the truck with him to enjoy the beach myself. And it grew until we got another truck. So then I had to drive the other truck and do the tours. By then I had heard it over and over so much that I knew
the stories.
So I did it. And then it grew until we had to add other people.
Now, why did you call it the Mule Train?
Okay, we started, the vehicle that we bought for the beach was, it was called the Mule.
Oh, okay.
The Kawasaki Mule.
Oh, yeah.
That type of vehicle.
Okay.
And so we bought that and had a trailer built to pull behind it so we could take more people. However, the trailer didn't work very well in the sand behind the mule was great, but that's Mule Train, that's what we got it from that.
I gotcha. Now, did you get any teasing about being called Jenny and the mules?
All my life. And I guess catch another better one than that.
I say.
My first name is Nellie, and that's a mule name too, so I got it from Jenny
and Nellie. Oh my gosh.
Always in fun, and I never minded.
Well, now, the tours, Sonny, where'd you get your stories from? I mean, did you go out and actively collect, or did you read, or was it all personal?
It was factual stories about the history of the Cape. It was very historic tours, old documented stuff. And then if he wanted to stop and tell one of his entertaining stories, then he would do that. So that's why he and Chris Youngmans were the only two of our drivers that told personal tall tales. So they were asked for a lot.
I forgot that Chris was worked with y'all.
Yes.
Some. Now, how was he there a couple years with you in the summer? Or?
Yes.
Well, that's
2 or maybe 3.
Yeah, at least 2.
And why did you quit? Because you found out you could go down to the islands and stay, have more fun, or?
Well, I actually started going to the islands because we were working in the summer.
Okay.
Because prior to that, we went to Europe in the summers, and then when we were working in summers, we found a winter place to go.
Okay. And why did you stop? You just decided it was time?
I just got
burned out, or?
Little old. The heat started getting to us. He was having a little bit of heat exhaustion one day. And
when you spend 10 or 12 hours on that beach, in the hot sun, and the parking lot was the hottest place in the world. And if that time happens to include a time that you've got to load on and you get stuck.
Oh.
And we
really got to be in top health. And you have to change a tire. Oh my God.
Got to be.
We actually did it. He did it for not so much for the money, but for the interest in doing something historic and being active. And when it got to be a strain on us, we thought, well, okay, enough. He got sick one summer. Well, he reacted to Vioxx that the doctor had given. And he was very ill, and I was desperate having to go to work to run the Mule Train and leave him home. I didn't like it, and we had a long talk. I said, I don't like this. You might get sick again. I might get sick. We need to be together. We don't need one to be on the beach. So we just said enough and gave it to somebody else and went on our business. But we loved it.
At that time, we had Chris was working for us. Lily
Miller?
Miller, not Lily Miller.
We had
Buck's daughter. She's also a school principal.
Well, I'll think in a minute. We had Chris,
Gil Blair,
Rosie, David Ebenhauser,
Bill Blair worked for us.
Bill Blair.
Oh, Bill Blair? Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
He was.
no, you can't tell me he didn't say anything personal.
Oh, well, yeah, he probably told his little stories.
I bet he
too.
did.
We have to remember who was doing all this.
Uh-huh.
But we had, the one you're talking about is Rosie's niece, and her husband worked one summer.
Yeah, they're both.
And at one time, our granddaughter worked.
Well, he's a guy that. Well, I'll be damned by a guy.
He's
Hell to get old.
I know it. Yeah, I saw him, but it's all right.
I can't remember.
He's on
names
TV
anymore.
with
Anything.
Rodney Kemp talk about sports one time on the little TV program.
Oh, well, I don't get cable, so I...
Well, I have trouble right now with names too. So, but we had many people work. We had 5 trucks over there at the last.
Wow.
And a driver for each truck because some days we were busy enough to need one.
Now, did you give it up, or did you sell it to somebody?
We gave it to one of our drivers,
Nobody would take it.
Patrick Sutton. We tried to give it to Bill Blair. We tried to give it to Rosie. They didn't want it. Everybody that worked for us wanted to work part-time for fun.
Right.
But we did give it. We gave it to Patrick Sutton.
Patrick Sutton.
And he was one of our drivers too the last year, and then we worked 1 year for him.
And your last year was what? That you owned it?
I don't have any idea.
Don't have any idea. Okay.
I can't remember.
Isn't it something neither one of us can remember the date?
Now, it didn't last very long, did it? After you all...
We had
8 or 10 years.
8. We had 8 years, and it ran another 2 because
Another 2. Yeah, I didn't think
it's a
it
10-year thing.
wasn't very long afterwards.
And Patrick, he was a Yankee, but we picked him. Maybe he will run it. I agreed to work for him for the last. We would work for him 1 year.
Mm-hmm. To help him out.
To help him out.
Well, yeah,
make
until
sure
he got the hang of everything.
he got the hang of it. Because I wanted it to go on like we were.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the Park Service were making changes, and we just figured
just best not
between
to.
health-wise, age-wise, and then that we were ready to go. And Patrick had it for a couple of years, and he sold out to Marty Munns, I believe. He did.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, but anyway, we
Marty.
had fun while it lasted.
But I thought that for sure that Patrick would keep running it on a friendly basis like we were running. And
I think you.
no, I want this to go on record.
Okay.
And Patrick, really, he needed a money-making job, and he changed everything as soon as I left, and got an argument with the people at Calico Jacks. Had a lawsuit about it because he wanted more money. He wanted to charge more money, and they got an argument about it. I don't know what the hell it was called about. It was causing a disturbance, I read. But it just went all to hell.
Oh, that was too bad, because I think it really meant a lot to a lot of people, and I think it really.
Do you know we still have people ask?
I'm not surprised at all.
We still have people ask for us, and we still have people come to see us when they're down here, and they'll find out where we live and come to see us. We had one guy, his last name was Florence. He someplace upstate. He owned a landscape, and they're like big landscaping jobs. He had 2 children, Jenny, boy and a girl.
Yes.
They were all short. we had.
They were.
We had. They've been coming with us for years, and 2 or 3 times every summer, and they go down. We tell them where the chills were this time, you know. We drop them off with the chill, and they stay over there all day and chill. They just had the most fun. And one time I'm coming down the beach, and I see a little bit of commotion going on the the western side, down towards the point. Something unusual was happening, so I was empty, so I sped up and went on down, and Jenny's coming in with two females hanging on her or under her arm. She pulled out of the surf, and when they were both over their heads, getting over their heads, and Mama was trying to get the girl, and then the little boy got into where he could stand, and the father went and got a hold of his wife. The wife had a hold of the girl, and he was over his head. And he said, she definitely saved our lives. No doubt in my mind whatsoever. She definitely saved them, because the thing was going through my mind. Damn, I believe I could save myself, but I'm going to have to give up my wife to do it. When she came in, and she got a hold of him, and eventually his wife, and
you pulled them in?
Pulled them in to where they could stand.
It wasn't exactly like he's telling it, but
well, that's pretty close.
the man and his wife and little boy, he had one in each arm, and when he got over his head, he couldn't.
There was no way to.
And I come along just in time to grab the boy from him, set him down, said, "Don't move," and grabbed him and got him to where we could both touch. I said, "Have you got your feet under you?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Give me her," because she was gone. I mean, she was.
She was passed out?
No, she wasn't all the
She
way
was hysterical.
passed out, but she was shocked is what had set in on her.
Mm.
And I said, "Give me her," and I went and set her down, and she laid down. And I went, and by then he had got his foot, and I walked him short. And this is all right now business.
Real fast.
And then we helped her. Didn't know.
And by then I was there.
Didn't know if we were going to have to do
Knew I'd done another heroic thing.
CPR or anything on her, but she was okay. I said, "You're all right. You're on land," and I set her up, and so maybe and she did. She wasn't didn't have water in her. She was okay.
Wow.
And it was pretty. He called me his angel for months or years.
And where were they from? Where were they from?
Somewhere upstate here. I can't remember, but in North Carolina. But up
Wow.
in the mountain area.
Where do they eat ramps?
Oh yeah, that's up near the mountains.
Yeah,
They're up near the mountains, but I can't.
They used to bring
remember
us
that.
ramps.
But they were. But yeah, that's things like that happen on the beach, and you work quick. I had a cell phone in a pocket and a VHF in my hand. I called him, and he went. I don't remember him being where he said he was, but anyway, I called him. I said, "I'm going to be off there. I've got problems. I'll get back to you if I need help." Throw that down and I'm running, and my cell phone, boom, I throw that in the sand, and the VCR was okay, but I destroyed my cell phone when it hit the wet sand.
Oh gosh.
But yeah.
And
Did you have any other close calls like that?
That was my closest call, because I said, "You might could have made it." He said, "No," and really thinking back, I don't think he could, because I don't think he could have turned to lose either one of them.
That would have been a terrible decision to have to make.
And his daughter, older daughter that was with him, had walked down the beach and was sitting up by the dunes and was sitting reading, and she was out where she couldn't hear them.
Mm.
But
and for one time there was nobody else nearby on the beach that could see them or hear them.
Well, that point is so long, and people hear, and the wind and the waves, you don't hear anything. But
She saved one more. She saved a little boy from a school group.
oh yeah, he was funny. He said, "If you hadn't grabbed me, I would have drowned it." I said, "I know you wouldn't." Told this little hand, "Go up and go back down."
Oh my
The
gosh.
teachers paying no attention.
Teachers had been, yes, they had been around that little
I
pond.
know they had, but
They had watched around that little pond
1 second,
all the
so it
time.
takes.
And just when they said, "Okay, it's time to go," everybody started walking around the edge of that pond to go to the truck. And instead of walking around the edge, he was going to walk through the water, and it got over his head. And I let everybody go ahead of me to the truck, and I happened to see a little hand come up out the water and go back down.
gosh. That would have
I
freaked
got
me
a hold
out.
of him, and I was just getting over my head, but I got a hold of him. I saw where that hand went, and I reached down and I got him, and I got a hold of his arm and picked him up to me. And he went and run me just like a frog. And he said, if you hadn't got me, I would have dragged it.
Gosh.
He come to see us the next summer over there. When the school group came, he come with them. I said, what are you doing back? Because it was the same grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what his answer was. I don't know if he talked them into letting him come or if he stayed in the same grade. But he came back and thanked me again, reminded me, because I didn't recognize him.
Wow.
And he reminded me who he was. So yeah, things like that happen.
Goodness me.
He dealt with some girl on the beach that was having, not on the ocean, on the same side, was having an epileptic fit. And
Oh, dear.
he come across that. And then the parents were there. And by the time he noticed it went to her, they were there and knew what to do for her. But things like that.
I couldn't imagine people with an epileptic child.
Just
They
leave.
don't know anything to do for it.
Okay, because those things don't happen for months at a time.
That way, and some of them happen all the time.
Yeah,
You know,
but some
so-
of them, because my...
But did you have anything funny happen, that just...
All
Oh,
the
God,
time.
yes.
All the
Tell them
time.
about time. I want to know about how the horses got to water. Over the chapel.
That was when we were keepers. That's very interested in about the horses that he could see them over on Shackleford, and I answered everything. What they came from Spanish shipwrecks, all the history that I knew about it, and how did they live, and they ate the marsh grass, and there's fresh water on the island. They dig for the fresh water. Thank you. Well, this has been so interesting. Thank you very much. He started. Come back. He says, wait a minute. They dig for the water, or you go dig it for them? So I explained a little further about that they dig it with their horses. But it's funny things.
I wanted to tell him that we issue them with shovels.
But
What? I say, yeah,
And we had a lot of,
kinds of like the Marines use these little fold-up shovels. We issue each one of those, and they can dig their own hole.
funny things that I went to pick a couple guys up off Cape Point late one afternoon, and it just the two of them. In fact, they had been signed to leave like at 2:00, and were having so much fun. Can you radio and tell them that we want to stay and be picked up later? And we did everything like that. So yeah. So when I went back, the last pickup of the day, one of them was standing on the beach, and he come up. Well, it's time to go. Where's your buddy? So I'm out there in the water, it's this deep water. He said, he can't come out. He lost his bathing suit. And I said, we didn't bring towels or nothing. He said, no, we didn't bring anything. We just came over in our swimsuit because we didn't know we were going to stay so long. So I go to the truck, and I had these little, it was like little, real thin pads, very thin pads that I had made for the seats on the trailers. So I got him one of them. He carried it out there and he wrapped it around. So he left all wrapped.
Oh, my God.
But it was covered and things like that. But they were, well, he was embarrassed. His buddy thought it was funny, and I thought it was funny. So two of us had a joke about it.
I wouldn't have thought it was funny if it happened to me.
No, me neither.
Mm.
But I didn't have towels or extra clothes or anything, but I did have those cushions. Remember I made those cushions for them? Because
There
the
was a
wood
lot of fun.
sometimes would get
We got a
really
lot of
hot,
laughing over
and people with bikinis on, sit on that hot paint, so I had made those cushions. So that was one of the funnier things. And interesting people that... One guy just, he fussed all the time that he was getting in the truck, fussed with his wife. Apparently, he wanted to come, and she was afraid of this and afraid of that, and he fussed with her. And I stopped, and I said, are you going to be like this all day, all this tour? And he said, it shocked him, and then he kind of started laughing. He said, I'll try now. I said, well, good. Let's work on it. And, and then he started laughing, and he was just as pleasant.
That's good.
And one of Another funny thing was one of Chris Young's stories that we weren't with him, but he told us he went down the road from the gunboats and up the beach and hit a wash where the tide had gone in and out, and everybody bounced around hard enough they were squawking and stuff, and nobody got hurt. But he said, "Oh boy," he said, "I finally found that dugout that I've been looking for." Somebody's
that tunnel.
Blackbeard's tunnel or something like that. He told them, "I finally found it. If I have proof, y'all can sign that you helped me find it." That was quick thinking.
That really was.
But it was one of the funny things that we've talked about through the years too.
I stopped down by Dr. Barton's house, and I had a pretty good load.
I'm bringing coffee.
A good load was the truck loaded and the trailer, and we had that would be close to 20 people.
20 people, huh?
Oh yeah.
And so I was telling the Blackbeard story, and I explained to them that some of the myths or folklore or whatever you want to call it, one of the most persistent ones was about Blackbeard swimming around the ship with his head cut off.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this fellow sitting in the truck all the way up front, and look, it's early 30s.